Well, I want to shift gears and I want to talk about Capetown. Let's do a deep dive on Capetown. I want to get your thoughts, your advice for other people who are thinking about spending winters or maybe even the whole year in Capetown. So let's start with just give me your overview. Why Capetown? What do you love about it? What do you not love about it?
What I love about Capetown is like truly a magical place. Like it's the most beautiful city you'll ever go to. Like more beautiful than Vancouver or Rio de Janeiro. It's amazing. The ocean, the beaches are like the Hawaiian beaches. The mountains are like unlike any others. The wildlife, obviously in the safaris, but there's more natural diversity in the Fynbos, it's called here, in the mountains here than there is in the Amazon, which people don't know because from afar it doesn't look like much. But you get up there, there's just so many flowers and different plants and whatever. It's always great to go hiking there because you're going to see something different. And then Capetown, at least because I'm a vlogger, I can have the opportunity to live a 5-star life on a 3-star budget. There's like the high end here, they do extremely well. It's very European in that way, and that like everything is very, very classy and nice. Costs whatever, a half to a third to a quarter of what it would in Canada or the United States, or right. So it allows us to live a high quality life on a low budget. And there's just so much adventure to be had around here. Just hiking, water sports, wine tasting, restaurants, and then cultural stuff, just because you're surrounded. But you see the whole gamut here, and like economic situations, right? You see the poorest of the poor and the richest of the rich, and it really gives me a lot of gratitude for where I'm at. Like I'm not the richest guy in the world, but I'm sure as hell not as bad off as 95% of the other people here. Whereas like if I go back to Vancouver in the summer, which I love, you go there or any other developed city, and everyone's just like complaining about stupid shit. They're like, man, you guys are all so lucky to be here. And so lucky to be in your situation. Like so many people in Cape Town or many other countries, obviously, most other countries would jump to be at your position. So stop complaining and appreciate what you have. So that's quickly, we keep coming back to Cape Town.
And what do you think, what are the big cons there? Like what are your least favorite things about Cape Town?
Internet, this call was cut out a few times because the internet is sketchy. And not just the internet though, it's power in general. There's rolling blackouts that happen regularly throughout the year because there's a power supply issue nationally. But the biggest con, I guess, would just be the insecurity, right? Like people don't come because it's unsafe, which I think is not a good reason not to come. Yeah, exactly. Double negative, whatever. And then it's just like you can't walk around non-busy streets at night. That's the one thing that you just can't do. And I miss about being able to do in other countries. And that's it, really.
And then on the Wi-Fi side, so rolling blackouts where it's not like a Wi-Fi company issue, it's a power it's a whole, it's the power issue. Like how often do blackouts happen where you just lose, like everyone loses Wi-Fi?
It's unpredictable, which is part of the problem. I would say like during these summer months, they turn it off just because lots of tourists come and they don't want to scare them away, I think. But other months it's, you'll have it a couple times a week. You'll have 2 hours with no electricity. Generally prioritize the wealthier areas so that we get those rolling blackouts at 8 to 10:30 or 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. But even still, it's just a nuisance. On the bright side, your cell phone still works and still that is cheap, so it's not like it knocks you out.
So you can tether to your phone and keep going.
Yeah. And I think if you're that addicted to the internet, you have a problem anyway. So in some ways it's helpful to be
yeah,
like, listen,
if we were doing an interview and it blacked out, that would be a problem too.
That's true, yeah.
And then take me through cost of living. What's the range of how much you'll pay for apartments, for food, for other stuff? Like what does cost of living look like and how does it compare to, a city like Vancouver?
Okay, yeah. So compared to we pay, to give a baseline, so like an apartment that we're renting here that costs about $1,700 or $1,500 US a month would cost $5,000 to $6,000 a month in Vancouver. It would probably cost roughly the same, slightly less in Medellin, so it's slightly more for real estate. And in Europe, it probably also costs whatever 3,000 to 4,000 euros for what we have. So real estate is quite affordable for renting if you find the right place, especially now, because of COVID. Food wise, groceries and whatnot is not much cheaper than anywhere else in the world. It's a commodity. But eating out, really cheap because the cost of producing that food is very low. So you can eat out for like our favorite steak place, which has no corketry, so you can even bring your own wine. We'll serve a 300 gram, 40-day aged steak with a high quality, like really high quality steak for $10 US, right? And that comes
Wow.
with the side, and yeah, it comes with the side and then some starters, right? So, and then like the highest of high-end restaurants are going to be about 70 US for like a multi-course sit-down meal in like the most luxurious setting you could ever imagine, like in the middle of a wine farm overlooking mountains and oceans and everything like that. Like, yeah. And then what other costs would you be interested in?
Well, I guess on the apartment side, so as you get to like lower end, like studios, one bedrooms on maybe a monthly rate on Airbnb, because
$400 US in a really good location. Like if you want to share it with other digital nomads, for example, and you want to be close to like the bars and restaurants and stuff like that, and the nightlife and the vibe and the cafes, yeah, $400 you'll get yourself a nice place, secure, safe, modern, clean. You're gonna pay a cleaner will cost you $17 a day to come by and keep your place clean, and so most of us have that happen.
Got it. And then weather and best months to visit. You guys go for their summer, which is our like North America's winter. Mm-hmm. Give me a rough sense of the better and not as good months, and what the weather ballpark is like for those different months.
Okay, yeah. So temperature wise, like it helps to understand that Capetown 33 degrees south of the equator, whereas basically Los Angeles is 33 degrees north of the equator, or I think it's Marrakesh is also 33 degrees above. So it's like around there. It just flipped. So it's always pretty warm, always in the like I don't know, high 60s from Fahrenheit, like high teens at the very lowest in the winter. But like from November through to April is when we come. March is the summer months, and then that's when it's never like stinking hot if you're by the coast, because the ocean is freezing cold here because it blows in from the Arctic. So it's always like in the like maybe 80, 85 degrees or like 25 degrees centigrade. Super comfortable, like comfortable right now, just sound like this. The one thing is that, and it's always dry, as you might have heard from the droughts that were famously occurring a few years ago, but now raining every once in a while, so there's no problem. Dams are full. And then it's windy. It's got crazy winds that like mad and knock you over some parts of the year. It's called the Cape Doctor. So it's keeping us healthy down here, blowing the bad air away. And then the other thing is like Capetown, it's because like it's part of the magical place, because at the center of it is Table Mountain, right? And then the city surrounds it in a sense. Every side of that Table Mountain is going to have completely different weather, feel completely different. So if it's, they make a joke that you can have the 4 seasons of the year every day in Capetown just by moving around the mountain.
And take me through like, what is the community like, I guess, on the digital nomad community side, and then more broadly, I mean, you referenced this earlier, just meeting people in general. Like how easy is it to meet other digital nomads and just connect with other people?
Yeah, I'd say like digital nomads, it's not very big here because it's the big, I guess the other downside of Cape Town is it's freaking far away from most of the rest of the Western world, right? So there's not such a large digital nomad community. There's Facebook groups, but we've tried and really just never really connected with it. So the other avenues that I already talked about. And then in terms of connecting with local people, they say like this about Vancouver and maybe like any coastal, like really nice coastal city that has it's very cliquey. So it's hard to get into meeting these people that are locals from around here. And there's not as much of an international presence because it's not as much of a business hub as say Johannesburg is. You go to Johannesburg, everyone's from elsewhere and they're trying to meet new people. Whereas here Cape Town, there's a lot of Cape Townians who have their deep relationships and they're comfortable with them, so they don't need to bother trying to meet new people. But of course, you can always weasel your way in, as we've managed to do.
And then what is the nightlife like? I imagine you're not hitting the nightlife hard now that you have a newborn, but for people who are single, like, yeah, how does the nightlife compare to other cities?
Yeah, I've never been a nightlife person, but I'd say like that if I was here in my earlier mid 20s, the huge perk here is that it's model season down here, so they do all the shoots for the summer season up north, and so this place gets just teeming with models everywhere, and models like to party, and so you get involved in that community and those people, and then all of a sudden you're having some crazy model parties and a really good time. Just
sounds great.
With great looking people. Yeah. So my friends who are models who were models, great things about it. So there's that, and I guess if you're not a model and not into that, it's the usual, but it's more casual, because really like when it comes to like being social and stuff, it's more so taking advantage of the outdoor activities, and even like drinking. You want to go to the wine farms in the middle of the day, and the wine farms close at 5 o'clock. So a big like fun party thing to do would be to rent a truck or like a taxi van and just go wine touring around the city, because there's like 500 wine farms within a 3-hour drive of Cape Town.
Give me a sense of neighborhoods. Like if I was going to book an Airbnb in Cape Town, what are some of the favorite neighborhoods that you would recommend, or popular neighborhoods, and maybe some that you wouldn't want to book in?
There's basically 3 parts of the city. There's the Atlantic seaboard, which is going to be the sort of coastal side. There's the city bowl, which is going to be like around like the central city downtown area. And then there's like I don't even know what to call it, but that's the part I wouldn't stay at, which is sort of like the hipster area. Like if people like, there's an appeal to it to the students. Lots of students stay there, but it's way less safe. It's kind of grungy, and you can't really walk around there. I don't know, just don't stay there. There's areas like called Woodstock Observatory, things like that. Then the city bowl, there's the sort of like, that's where the more younger people go, and the bars and clubs are more close to there, and that's an area called Gardens, and it's a little bit more affordable, and so you can live in a house or a shared apartment there, and you're right by the mountain, so you can hike up the mountain of Lion's Head or Table Mountain, and still it's really beautiful, but you feel like you're in a city still, like to the Atlantic seaboard side, which is on the other side of Lion's Head, hopefully famous enough that most people know about it. And then you're on the coast, and then there's a promenade that goes all along the coast, and so it feels way more like a beachy city, like more of like a California type city. And it's that's where we stay, because they say stay here where we stay, because we like to be right by the coast. It's nice to just walk up and down the promenade along the beach and go to the beach, play volleyball, all that. Nice. So it depends what you like. It's more family oriented here, I guess, socially oriented Cape Town in the city center, and then elsewhere is more oriented towards losing your stuff because it gets stolen.
Fair enough. And booking housing, is Airbnb recommended, or now that you guys stay there for, I mean, you're doing what, 5-6 months, so I imagine you probably have relationships to stay in person, but for someone who's new, who's never been, is it Facebook groups, is it local sites, is it Airbnb, is it show up in person and like visit places in person? What would you recommend? When
Cape Town's booming, it's hard because this is a sought after place to be, right? So there is a Facebook group called Huis HUIS that is best for finding shared rooms, and where will be able to find places to stay with either the Capetonians or the digital nomads. Otherwise, like you're looking through the regular channels, which is Airbnb, which there's tons up until COVID, and then all of a sudden, since there was no tourists coming, they took all those things, all the inventory off Airbnb and started renting it out again. And so now there's tons of rental properties. Who knows what's going to happen? Basically, every year we found our apartment through a different avenue. It's kind of it is difficult, but I would say it's pretty much difficult anywhere, any sought after city in the world.
Fair enough. No, that's insightful on its own. And then for working, any favorite cafes, co-working spots that you would recommend? I don't know if you're mostly working at home and can't advise there, but any you've heard about if you're not working out and about?
Yeah, there's a lot. There are a lot. There's one called, I like the ones that are outdoors, because like I said, we move around for the weather. So anything that gives us access to the fresh air, is protected from the wind that blows strong often, and even better if it has a view of a mountain or the ocean. That's great. It's a bonus. So, and then obviously reliable Wi-Fi, but they'll have Wi-Fi now. Early on they did it, but now they do. So like there's one Bootlegger is like a chain. It's kind of like a Starbucks for co-working that is always a go-to wherever you go. Any neighborhood that's going to have one, and it's good. I don't know about the coffee, but the working environment's fine, and they don't boot you out. Then there's one called Shift, which is more in the center of the city. That's great because you see the mountain, and you're right by like a little like canal area, which is nice and scenic and chill and relaxed. One called Strangers Club, close to where we are, which is kind of like in a garden. So that's really a nice place to just work, and it's kind of like a Zen type atmosphere. I'm sure those people spend a lot of time in Bali. You probably know them.
Awesome. And then I guess kind of one last question is on the female friendly side and safety side of things. Like any tips beyond, you mentioned don't walk around in empty streets at night. Any other key, and you also mentioned specific neighborhoods that are more dangerous, but any other key things that people should know on the safety side, and I guess especially on the female safety side, where obviously you're not female, but you have a partner who's, I'm sure, thought a lot about this stuff.
Yeah, like she'll still walk around with her phone out in the city, in the neighborhoods that we live in, which is Atlantic seaboard, all the time, right? I guess you just have to, I can't really say, like, you just have to be somewhat aware. You always have to have your spidey sense on, which you don't in other cities, right? Like, you have to there are like homeless people, there are very desperate people around that will possibly try to take advantage of you. But if you're totally oblivious to it, you're gonna get in trouble. And we've met some women that have come here that are a little bit too confident in their independence, that just walk down the wrong street, even if it's for a couple blocks, and even if it's in the middle of the day, but it's quiet and there's no one around, and you're asking for it, really, because there's a lot of desperate people. So it's just about, having common sense. If you have common sense, you have to be unlucky to have something bad happen to you. You don't need to be paranoid. You just need to be smart, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's very helpful. Anything else to add for someone who's considering Cape Town as a destination?
Yeah, I mean, it's the best place, one of the best places in the world to go for a road trip. It's amazing. Like, you can rent cars really cheap, and just like the amount of things you can see outside of the city. And I'm not just talking about safaris. Like, safaris, they're cool, but they're pretty far away. There's little towns around here. They're amazing to stay at. And then there, for getting a place, Airbnb or some other local networks, you can get just like an amazing sort of cottage on a farm with just some wonderful views and some like farm fresh milk, bread, whatever. And it's going to cost you like $80 a night for the full cottage. So for like 4 people, right? And that's really a huge part of the appeal that people don't think. People just think of Cape Town and that's it. Cape Town, Joburg, Safari, and that's it. But no, there's so much more outside of the city to see and explore that makes this place like never boring, right? And if you get into wine, I never cared a thing about wine until I came here. But once you get into wine, man, the thing is here in Cape Town, they drink all the good stuff and export the bad stuff. So South Africa has a bad reputation for wine, but come here and you get delicious stuff for like whatever, $10-15 a bottle, and you just can't get enough of it. It's borderline unhealthy, but people here also live a very, very healthy lifestyle, so it balances out.
Awesome.